I'm speaking with the king now.
One of those dwarves said the children are going hungry. Again, I just don't understand. Where's the meat? How come they're not, like, hunting and stuff? No, it's just salads like their crops are dying.
Send them in.
Sire.
Now, let me tell you something. I love a good father-son story. I think it's one of the most powerful stories you can tell. I played, one of the best games I played was God of War 2016 and then God of War Ragnarok. And it has an incredible story between Kratos and Atreus. And whenever you do it right, it really hits the feels. Like, it can be very powerful whenever you have a good dynamic between a father and a son and you create tension. There's so much you can work with there. In the first season, there was the spat between the two of them over the mithril thing. If they do this right, it could really go well for the show. It could really bump it up. Because there's this rift, and they've kind of been building it up. So how they make up, and how they come back together, and how they communicate that, it could be very good. Or they could drop the ball and fumble it. So I'm interested to see what happens.
Celebrimbor claims these rings will give us the power to solve our dilemma.
Is that all you come to say?
Okay.
No.
Alright, give me something.
What else?
That I am your son. I'm hard as you. Stubborn as you. As crusted with pride, and I was wrong. I was wrong to disrespect you. I'm sorry.
You look terrible.
Miners have calloused fists. Their punches land hard.
Wait till your children grow up.
Father, this power in Eregion, I don't trust it.
Okay. So, what do I think about that? He approached the subject with his father about the rings, and then they actually got to the juicy stuff, the meat. Give me the meat. What did he say in season 1? Give me the meat and give it to me raw, or something like that. That's a classic line. He confessed to his father. He apologized to his father. I wasn't expecting them to hold each other and cry. God, I'm glad they didn't do that. That's how they could have screwed it up. His father responded in a rough, gritty manner. I would have liked... It wasn't bad. The whole scene wasn't horrible. I would have liked one more line from his dad, though. His dad said, "You look terrible," and then, you know, Durin, he's like, well, you know, the fists of the miners, you know, they hit hard. And then Durin, his father, is like, yeah, just wait until your children grow up. Referencing how Durin here, the fourth, kind of hurt his dad, you know, with his words. I thought that was fine. I think it could have done with maybe one more line. It was so quiet, too. Like, the music kicked in a little bit there, but then it tuned out. And it was really quiet, and it was on the verge of almost being awkward. I think if the scene went on longer, it would have become awkward. They needed to keep the music. And I think after Durin the father, the third, said that line, maybe have the music kick back in a little bit, and turn it up just a little bit, and then the father step forward to... Durin the third here, maybe put his hand on his shoulder and maybe say something like, I don't know, something like, "You're my son. You know, it's good to have you home." Something like that. You know, something real brief, real simple. Just put his hand on his shoulder and say, you know, something like that along the lines of, you know, you're my boy, you know, and I'm glad you're back. You know, something like that. Just a little bit of, like, a period at the end of that whole conversation, like this solid, solidifying, you know, I'm glad you're home, son. That kind of thing. I guess you could argue maybe he didn't need it. And you could tell that, okay, it looks like they're good now. But I think it would have helped it if he did that and the music kicked in and they just kind of sat there and lingered on that moment and that scene for just a few seconds more. I think it really would have had a little bit more oomph to it. It wasn't bad, though. I was really worried they'd screw it up. It's just not as good as I think it could have been. I was okay with Durin's line. I don't like him almost being on the verge of crying, though. I think dwarves should be manly. I think dwarves should be like the epitome of masculinity, because the elves are very feminine, and you know, in a good way when it comes from the Lord of the Rings movie. But now this show has cranked up the estrogen. They've turned all the elves into just complete soy cucks, and then they feminized the dwarves. I'll never forget in season 1. Oh my gosh. There was a scene when they introduced the dwarves. I was okay with the rock scene, you know, when they're trying to beat the rock. They could have done so much better. Like, for one, Elrond had to purposely lose. And I was just thinking to myself, there's no way you would beat in a contest of strength against a dwarf. That can't be the case. Elves are eloquent, they're fast, they're skillful, you know, they're swift, but they're not tough, like gritty and tough the way that dwarves are. There's no way. I don't think that would be the case. Maybe I'm wrong. And man, I was just thinking about it when they introduced the dwarves in season 1. I was thinking, man, what if they did something like, I don't know, Elrond walks into Khazad-dûm, and I don't know, it's like this giant hall that looks like Valhalla, and there's these giant pillars, and in the middle of the room, they have this giant fire, and there's like these big boars, like these huge boars or baby elephants or something on the spitfire, rolling around and being cooked and stuff, and you kind of bring in with that music, you know, like the dwarven music. It's like, you know, there's this video on YouTube I watched, and oh, it's so good. It's like da na na da na 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 da da. You know the tune. You know, it's so good. It's like, man, this is Khazad-dûm. And I was thinking about this the other day. Like, what if they portrayed Durin here, the Sin? Like, Elrond walks into the room, and they would have had to do this in season 1. He walks into the room, and he looks up at the throne room, and there's all these dwarves, and one of the dwarves maybe steps forward, and he's like, "Behold, you stand in the great kingdom of Khazad-dûm," and then it cranks up the music, and the camera views out, and the whole room, and there's like a mist over the ceiling because the fire and stuff, and the drum is like, da na na da 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 da, you know, and it's like epic, and then the dwarf introduces Durin's. And he's like, "Our king, Durin the Third, and his son, Durin the Fourth." And then it like pans over to Durin, this guy, and just imagine he's like, I don't know, man, just like ripped to shreds like a dwarf. Like he's sleeveless and his arms are massive, like these bodybuilding arms, and he's got an axe on his back that's just huge, like a World of Warcraft axe, like just massive axe on his back, and he's got like chainmail on his legs, and his boots are made of like a boar's head or something, and the tusks are up, and he speaks, and he's like in this deep, you know, voice and stuff. I was just like, man, these are like the ancient dwarves, even more manly than the ones we see in Lord of the Rings. Like, where's the masculinity? It's like, oh, you know what I mean? And instead we get that scene with him and Elrond rising on the elevator, you know, on that makeshift elevator, and Durin here is just like, you know, "Elrond, you miss my children growing up. You missed my wife and my wedding. You missed it all. 1,000 years might be a blink in the eyes of an elf, but you missed it all." I was watching it, and I was just like, I did not like that scene. I did not like that. And it just tainted my view of all the dwarves, because I'm watching this guy just break down and cry in front of Elrond, and I'm just like, dude, are you like Thorin Oakenshield would have beat your ass. Gimli, Gimli, this is a Durin. So I can't stand, like, these guys should be rough and gritty. And so, I don't know, it's like, I'm just thinking about all this stuff. And there was some stuff in that scene right there that we just watched that came across not bad and more masculine. You know, like I said, if they would have hugged each other and cried, it would have been gay. It would have been lame. It would have been horrible. I wanted a little bit more. But then, you know, when the conversation started, Durin's kind of looking like he's on the verge of crying. Again. And I saw that and I was just like, man, come on. Like, I don't know. I can understand him kind of getting a stiff upper lip, but just, I don't know. I'm just kind of spitballing here. I like it when I just feel like the dwarves, especially these dwarves of Khazad-dûm, would be so much more manly and just strong and tough. And there's so much femininity in this show. And maybe that's why, even in Season 1, I prefer the dwarves out of everyone else. Maybe that's why, because they were the only ones that were just, like, brought some masculinity into it. And so, I don't know. Anyways, I was just kind of rambled there. I'm just kind of telling you my thoughts. That scene right there wasn't horrible, though. It could have been a little bit better. And I'm not really happy overall with what they've done with some of it. But they could have done worse. And I'm okay with that scene. That scene between him and his father there. Again, like, you don't have to work too hard to make it work, to make it effective. It's a very powerful thing. I wish he would have gotten a little less constant nagging from Disa. That was beginning to get annoying. But it was fine. This scene was fine, I guess. So, you know, the show, take a win when you can take a win, but those are my overall thoughts on it.